That brings us to our 5th match of the day here. Swidz is going to be taking on Viper to end out the European region here. And so there we're getting a look at the picks and bans at the bottom of your screen, where the Divine Shield over the class icon is representative of the class they protected in that. It's no longer eligible to be banned away in that situation. And so we're going to be looking at their Druid decks to kind of kick things off here, as I believe that is our first matchup. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we're in store for. You know, I said it pretty early on, it was Druid Day here at the Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe, and that is just continued to deliver. However, Viper, he's brought some spicy stuff this week.
Yeah, this is very, very different. This is what I would call a miracle druid. You can call this a Nomi druid if you like, but there's actually just more to it than the Nomi. Like, Nomi Priest was Nomi Priest. You drew your deck, you played Nomi. If that didn't work, that didn't work. This deck actually has Plan B, or Plan C, or Plan A, whichever layer you want to assign to it, whatever plan, because it also has that ridiculous Bees, Pounce, Elise, duplication, OTK thing going on if you want to go down that line.
Ooh, it is tough to execute.
Yes, it is. So I'm just waiting with bated breath to see what happens, not just with this deck, but with Viper's whole lineup, because alongside this deck, he has Control Shaman and Pogo Rogue. Like, if there were an award for the most outlandish lineup, Viper would win it by a mile.
Excuse you, sir. Peanut Shaman?
Fine. All right. So, Druid Mirror, again, I think the 3rd series now that we're going to see a Druid Mirror. I should clarify, there is a Pogo Rogue in Viper's lineup, but you will not be seeing it in the series, that it was the deck that was banned away from Viper.
And I believe that was Shaman that was banned away from Swidz. And so here we go. It's a Druid Mirror match, but not in archetypes. Viper, this is such a strange looking deck when you just kind of glance at all the cards. You go, what does this do?
Whoa, 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 new innovation. I have never seen it done that way around, and that's just melted my brain.
Well, that's like the win-loss thing, right?
Yeah.
Say the losses first and
right.
the wins.
Yeah.
Because that's the important one. How many did you lose? No, not how many did you win? How many did you lose?
Coin Quest instead of Quest Coin. Oh, the hot tech coming out of France.
Yeah, well, we've got some hot tech coming out of Germany here as well. Spirit of the Raptor. I had to look at the sheet to remember the name of that card. How often do you see me look at the sheet to remember the name?
Not that often.
What is that? When your hero power kills a minion, you draw, or I'm sorry, when your hero
When your hero attacks and kills a minion.
Yeah, you draw a card from it.
So if you find a weapon some way, that still counts.
So for Viper, the goal is draw through the deck and then do one of 2 combos. The first one is plow a bunch of Chef Nobis into play, or number 2 is a long, complicated sequence of using Floop's Glorious Gloop combined with Elise the Enlightened and Libidinous Floop, and you create an effective loop and you generate enough attack to kill your opponent in a single blow, or to have enough attack and armor that you can deliver a killing blow and at the same time stave off a counterattack and set up your own lethal.
Yes, bees also being a crucial component of that, which I don't think you mentioned, because it costs 3 and it summons 4 minions. It kills 4 to 5 minions. Essentially, because you played Floop's Glorious Gloop, you gain 1 to 2 mana every time you play bees. Sorry, bees! Which means that you generate extra mana over and over and over and over.
You didn't really say excuse you, sir. Corrected. Seeing the auxiliary use of Spirit of the Raptor. Wrath it for 1.
Behold, jewels of the sun.
Well, that's the job done for Swidz. You can just start doing the broken things. I'm not sure how much gas Viper's deck really has to stave off all the explosive things that Swidz can do very, very quickly from this point onward.
I mean, the idea for Viper is at some point you just rock it off, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I have to return to my home planet now, and you just rock it off to nowhere, then come back super powerful. That's the idea with the Gadgets in Auctioneer anyway. Viper's hand, though, it's gotten pretty clunky pretty quick.
Yes, it has. And I don't know how much license he's just going to have to just play Gadgetzan Auctioneer and draw a bunch of cards when as soon as next turn, there's going to be like 11 plus power on board for Swidz.
Doesn't want to use the Pounce of the Moonfire because he wants those to Gadgetzan Auctioneer.
For no one.
Can't use the Libidinous Loop if you want to OTK. That quickly eliminates it too.
Can't even really use the Libidinous Loop if you want to use the Nomi win condition, because Quest Druid can kill one Nomi board if that's all you play in terms of minion presence the entire game. They can just double Starfall it or something and job done.
Swidz has a beautiful hand to capitalize on this too. It has both Oasis Searchers from the start, and that is enormous pressure onto Viper.
I got the best deals anywhere.
Viper just says he's got to go. I kind of agree with him. This Moonfire plus the Pounce. Goes digging for Innovate, potentially, which can allow him to do something relevant this turn in terms of affecting the board state.
You have a question mark about the Pounce, I think.
Yeah, okay.
The idea is to rock it off, but that doesn't always happen. And so for Viper, I imagine we're going to be quickly entering the Turbo Nomi into play and hope our opponent cannot kill it game plan. Because he's about to have to play that auction.
Yep. Again, the luxury of just being able to sit back and draw cards just doesn't really exist when you're facing down Quest Druid on the other side. Look at the board that you end up facing down. How does non-Quest Druid compete against this? When you don't have Starfall as a, 5+2 AoE, when you don't have War Druid Loti just constantly buffing all of your removal, how does Druid kill these boards? We talked about how Druid had been extremely weak for a period of time. This is pretty much the exact reason why, is because it's struggled to deal with boards that look very much like this.
Viper not liking his outcomes on draws. And I think he just fizzled there.
Yeah, he just doesn't even really have another good Auctioneer turn set up for next turn.
There are so many cards that are buried in his deck. He was looking for Innervate, Moonfire, Pounce, another biology project. None of those showed up.
Having now used the one copy of Savagery as well, that potentially gives him some issues in plowing through taunts. He does end up having to go for the Bees OTK, but that is a long way away for now.
Bees OTK is gone. There's no floop.
Oh, good point. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
As soon as you play the floop, you lose that luxury.
The Earth Mother was busy.
Swidz, we didn't talk about it too much, but his variation of Quest Druid is built a bit differently than others. He's running single copy of Swipe, single copy of Ferocious Howl, and has included 2 Tending Tauren in the deck. He has neither Elise nor Chef Nomi. 2 copies of Power of the Wild as well.
This is kind of what I alluded to last turn. Viper's draws off the first Auctioneer were so bad that he just doesn't even really have a second good Auctioneer set up here.
You know, this was a twofold effect as well. You know, I think number one, this is a matchup that is certainly more difficult for him. And then number two, Swidz had the goods. Had the double Surger to start off with, and that was enough.
Yeah. I think even if he puts together the dream draws here, which he kind of is doing, he still has those 2 biology projects, 2 innovates, 1 Moonfire still remaining in his deck, which is kind of what Viper was shaking his head at on the previous turn. Yeah, all right, fair enough. I was already beginning to clutch at straws, because even at that point, even if he clears the board, even if he digs through his whole deck, even if he picks up the Nomi, he plays the Nomi, which is the only win condition he has left in the deck, and then it can just kind of get Starfalled away or whatever. Like, you just throw removal at it. You can even tank it for a turn, I think.
Just got stopped.
He had, yeah.
Just got stomped in that
just
one.
got shut down.
That is a matchup where if Swidz has the Oasis Surger early on, and you're not looking at sick Auctioneer turns, you're just done.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like it's okay to have some bad matchups in there. And I want to see this deck perform against a matchup that doesn't just turbo out everything. But I don't know if he has that luxury this week, because looking at the rest of Swid's lineup, you know, I'm seeing a Murloc Paladin in here as well, and that deck can be absolutely relentlessly aggressive in the right spots. You know, to me, it feels like that Viper anticipated Swid's bringing and playing Control Warrior in the setup, and perhaps that's not going to happen.
It's definitely something that players do get a reputation for being, for playing certain decks. But also, we talked about with Pavel kind of how I don't think coming into this format and saying, oh, you know, my opponent is known as a warrior player, so I'm just going to try and beat up on his warrior. Well, that doesn't work because they just don't play. Like, even if you were right and they brought the warrior, you just don't play it, right? So I don't think Viper is necessarily specifically targeting warrior, just using that as an example where, like, this is very different from traditional Conquest that we've had in years past, because it's almost flipped entirely on its head. The one thing that was shown to work previously, which was isolating one deck in your opponent's lineup and targeting it, that's the one thing that by essence can't work in this format, because if you target one deck, they can just leave it on the bench. You say, all right, you just sit there, you carry the water, like the rest of us will handle the business.
I think that's very well put. I think you gotta figure out a way to build an overall well-rounded lineup, or target two decks or what have you. Long story short, it's a tough task, and for Viper, it's a very quick exit out of game number 1, which means that we got to go to break, and game number 2 is going to get set up. Swid's up to a 1-0 lead, a very quick 1-0 lead over Viper at that. So stay tuned. It's our 5th and final match of the day.
The shadows are rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There should be scorching deserts, adventure, monster of narcissism. House they speak annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
My name is Paul Nemeth, aka Zalay, and you can find me on Twitter at ZalayHS, and more importantly, my stream, twitch.tv/ZalayHS. Tune in, twitch.tv/ZalayHS. A day in my life, I wake up when I feel like it, then I go to the gym when I feel like it, after that I stream when I feel like it, and then after that, I try and do something productive, and it doesn't always work. My personal goals for this year, I prefer to make short-term goals. So I try to live each day as best I can and make good decisions in the moment. And I don't focus too much on long-term goals because that can be complicated. And I think it's good to keep things simple and focus on what's important in the here and now. You know, it would be pretty cool if I could be first place in the Grandmasters system, but to be completely honest, I don't expect that. Just saying's a little bigger than me. Yeah, second place. That seems like a realistic goal. I could probably finish second place in the Grandmasters program. But I feel like second place it's a nice, comfortable spot for me. I'm into second place.
Hi, I'm Monsanto. I came up with the username Monsanto. I was in high school. It's from the company Monsanto, the big evil corporation. One of my teachers hated that company so much that at the end of the year he told us, well, if you didn't learn anything from my class, it's okay, as long as you remember that you should hate Monsanto. And that was like such a big thing to hear from your teacher, and I just immediately changed all my usernames to Monsanto. My best Hearthstone Esports memory was in 2016 in summer prelims. I was facing Dude 7597. I was completely losing on board as Druid against the Zoo Warlock. I had played 5 spells during the game, then I jammed the Yogg-Sothoth on. It cleared his board, built myself a board, and the next turn I had double Savage Roar for lethal. What makes me special as a player, I think, is I try everything. I try every possibility in decks, I try new things, and so when there's something that went under the radar, there's a big chance that I actually found it and I can bring that deck. Being in Grandmasters means a lot to me. Being able to just compete another full year of Hearthstone, that was a really big thing for me. I want to win the whole thing. That's my personal goal.
It's match number 5 here on Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region. I'm Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora. I'm joined by Simon Sottle Welch, and Sottle, we got Swidz off to a 1-0 lead with a pretty lopsided game number 1, but I think we're in for some uniqueness for game number 2. It's a deck we haven't seen in Europe so far, and a deck that I haven't seen at all so far. Period.
Period, yeah. It's kind of a Viper original, it seems. He's well known for these little pet Shaman decks, should we say, that no one else is really running. He was running Control Shaman in previous metagames before it became a thing, like before multiple people brought it to the World Championship. He ran it in a seasonal championship where no one else really gave it any respect for being a viable deck. He's doing the same thing again now. No one else running this kind of Shaman deck anywhere near this tournament right now. Viper standing out alone. King Faris, Archivist Elysiana, Omega Mind, Earthquake, like, whew.
Yeah.
This thing is built to kill some boards.
Important to note that at the tournament where Viper had brought that previous Peanut Shaman, as it's being called, because it's the nuts, even though Peanut is a legume.
See, I thought
he made the championship at that playoff as well.
I thought it was because you had to have a peanut brain in order to play this deck. Like that's where I thought the name came from. No?
What do I do here? I blow up the board? What do I do next turn? I guess I'm going to blow up the board. And I'm going to keep blowing up boards, and then that's exactly what Swidz is trying to do, though, is make those boards and have them not be blown up.
Yes, and I guess this is the ultimate test for this Murloc Paladin. It's kind of got this reputation of just being a very, very resilient aggro deck. But that, I mean, you know, it can be aggressive in the early game. It has these just outright mid-range power spikes with the Prismatic Lens tip the scales, just generating a board out of nowhere. But then even after that, it's what I mean by resilient is it can then just start playing Chef Nomi. So you have all of these incredible things to make board after board after board after board. I don't know if it has enough gas to plow through 2 Hagatha's schemes, two Earthquakes, all kinds of nonsense coming out from Viper, but he does have to draw those answers because Swidz can put you on a clock very, very fast with Murloc Paladin.
Yeah, I found it interesting that you said it was a test for a Murloc Paladin, because I feel like it's a test for the Shaman. Can it actually clear this many boards in a row?
I think we're both essentially saying the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I don't know why you got to be so combative all the time, Admirable.
It sounds like I'm combative, but we've talked about this before. It's just the way my voice sounds. Not combative at all. Genuinely curious.
I'm going to keep bringing it up because I've heard you say that like 350 times since I first met you. And it never gets old that you just continually have to justify how angry you sound all the time.
It's just the way that life works. Raven, this was literally almost 2 years ago now. Raven gave me tips on how to sound nicer. He said, just smile when you talk.
I was actually there for that, yeah.
And so what I do is I smile when I talk. Still sound angry.
Everyone's like, Raven, you're like, you're such an affable guy. Like, you sound happy and enthusiastic about things. And like, you know, people generally engage with you because you just, you know, you sound like, how do I do that? I'm just like, try smiling when you talk. Like, I don't know.
So I'll rephrase that. Raven, you're such a nice guy. You sound so happy all the time. How do I become happy and nice? And I said this with genuine curiosity as a compliment and kind of with a smile on my face. Just doesn't work. Viper foregoes the zap on 1. Thinking about curve constraints and what it means. Major things to think about. Thunderhead and Spirit of the Frog.
Yeah. Also thinking, yeah, exactly. Spirit of the Frog factors into it as well because you do want those 0-cost cards to start off the chain, draw those lightning bolts, which then draw the 2-cost cards, so on and so forth.
He's thinking specifically, I think, right now about Cold Light Seer and about Murloc War Leader.
Yeah, and also just about general curve. Like, how much does he want to save for a Thunderhead to really be able to swing the board? Is he happy to just answer this board now with the Spirit of the Frog, get a Lightning Bolt in his hand, use that next turn, move forward from there? There's a couple of different ways you can play this curve out.
Well, things are going to get tough.
He's going to hold for the Thunder. I mean, Thunderhead is a huge swing next turn.
It's the wrong one, Swidz. You're supposed to draw the lens first. Last time, I'm going to warn you. Only spells in the deck are Prismatic Lens and Tip the Scales. The idea is that when you Prismatic Lens, you cheat out the boys.
Yep. You can still, even if you draw the Prismatic Lens, you still have the failure rate of just hitting the other Prismatic Lens, but all that does is just mean that you then have to cast the second Prismatic Lens. Like, the chain has still been initiated, where you end up with the cheap Tip the Scales.
Chef Nomi, really the only card that makes that roll. So now Viper, he's going to have to start paying some respect to this board. This damage will pile up quick if you do not do something. 2 zaps, not enough to eliminate the board with Thunderhead.
Nope, 4 damage from zaps, 4 damage from the rush. Which means he is 2 damage short from completely clearing the board. He does play a 3/6 as part of that equation.
It's true.
I wonder.
And for Swidz, it's not a 3/6 you can really just disrespect.
No. So yeah, I think you have to do it here.
Shall we make a storm?
It plays like perfectly on curve into your opponent's True Silver coming down to take care of it, but I think if your opponent is playing True Silver on turn 4 and not Prismatic Lens, you're kind of happy with that. I mean, not in Prismatic Lens. If your opponent is playing True Silver to trade with your Thunderhead, and they're not just developing a board full of Murlocs, then you're happy with that.
I said it was the last time I was going to warn him, but I didn't really think he was going to draw
what
it.
happens now? You can't just make empty threats. That's bad parenting. They never learn that way.
Well, I guess this is the punishment. You just have both of them in hand now.
Ah, good point, yeah. Swidz, this is your crime. It is also your punishment.
And now Swidz is in major trouble. That is the opposite of how it's supposed to work. Now, here's the thing with Murloc Paladin. This is, in effect, it's an aggro deck, but it very much functions like a combo deck, where it has a built-in success and failure rate to the natural engine. Prismatic Scales cheat out a bunch of Murlocs. When you draw both tips instead, you are looking at a really tough time. Now, Tip to Scales is still very powerful, but I'm not sure it's coming down early enough. Viper gets to double up on Witch's Brew, draw 2 3-cost cards from the deck. He just loves cards that draw cards. I love Viper. Viper's my new spirit animal.
It does start to make the 6-mana Gadgetzan Auctioneer look a little bit silly when you can just play Spirit of the Frog. Like, jeez. This card is bananas.
Imagine it with bananas.
Now you're speaking my language.
Banana Buffoon, Spirit of the Frog, buff up, draw 2. Ooh. It's me warming up my
Yeah, I was
hand.
going to say, I don't know if you heard Admirable just very aggressively rubbing his hands together with anticipation.
That is both because that is something I anticipate and because it's freezing cold in here.
We got away with it for really long without mentioning it, but it's so cold in here, guys. I don't know what's happened.
Well, Viper looking at perhaps a fully dead turn into a pair of Earthquakes. And so the Earthquakes versus the Tip to Scales, perhaps enough to get it done. And there's an option for you. Lightning Storm for more clear. Or Ancestral Healing, perhaps make a weird turn like Archivist Elysiano. Okay. I think it's a Lightning Storm because I'm looking at the Omega Mind.
Sure, yeah, makes sense. was even somewhat considering the Feral Spirit off the first one just because I feel like his hand has AoE, but I guess there's a Rain of Toads there, which is just kind of better for that same purpose. So sure, just extra insurance policy with the AoE does make sense.
Like the Farsight, discount the mana for future purposes.
Reporting for duty.
I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be an active Nomi very quickly in this game.
Yeah, it gets there really quick. Prismatic Lens still needs to be drawn from the deck, but the nature of, you know, thinning your deck of tons of Murlocs is that you end up with no duplicates left really quick.
Right.
Looking at Sir Finley of the Sands, if it doesn't get pulled from Tip the Scales, that could be active as well. Zephyrus, that'll always be at the bottom of the deck. That's the one thing I really like about Tip the Scales with this deck is that
What to do?
the cards left in your deck are typically gas. Like if you drew the lenses first, you end up with True Silvers, Chef Nomi,
Yeah.
and Zephyrus as your last remaining cards.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Viper, of course, planning around Tip the Scales. That is the most likely card, I think, for Swidz to have at this point.
Yeah, I was just considering, you know, obviously when you know your opponent has such a power spike turn and when you know you've been staring over at cards that have been sat there for a while, you can put your opponent so clearly on doing one thing. You do start to tunnel on, like, singularly what's the best thing I can do against that one play. And honestly, the answer is just the nature of how reactive Viper's deck is. Means that there's nothing, like, enormously powerful he can do. I do like this play, though, because it kind of creates this board state that Viper's fine ignoring. Like, he's kind of okay just taking 4 more here because he has Omega Mind in hand, he can stall. But at the same time, like, yeah, it's just not a good Tip the Scales board for Swidz because there's so many board spaces already filled up.
Yeah, I'm, like, surprised he wants to play this. He's just got all the AoE.
That's what this deck is. I mean, he just hasn't. There's 2 Hagatha schemes that he hasn't drawn yet. He really does not have all the AoE.
He's got to think about how to fend off Chef Nomi, though. So, like, one of the Earthquakes has to stay in hand.
Yeah.
If you Lightning Storm this turn, that means that Earthquake would be your next clear.
Yep.
So Earthquake now. I don't want to overload. I want my mana so I can play Hagatha. No charges. Finley drawn from the deck. And that is a sight to behold for Viper. Hagatha.
Would leave 3 coming back at him, but with Omega Mind, Lightning Storm on the following turn, or Omega Mind, Earthquake, like whatever it needs to be with Omega Mind.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty safe. He's not going to die in this one turn. If he doesn't die on this one turn, he's not going to die to direct damage anytime soon after that.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be with the Lightning Storm, because with 4 cards left, he knows there's Chef Nomi on the other side. Without a Hagatha scheme in hand, he has to be able to clear that board, or he will lose the game.
Yep.
So that Earthquake is off limits.
Correct.
And so for Swidz, it's about finding relevant charge damage. Still a Zephyrus in the deck, which is active now.
Wonder.
Has a Hungry Crab, Prismatic Lens, Chef Nomi, and Zephyrus as the last cards, I believe.
Crab Lens, Nomi, Zephyrus, yep.
Must move quickly.
So even if Fishflinger were to give Bluegill there, he would only have had 13.
Job done.
Well, there's a potential for a lot of us to stick to board. Is that a Ziliax. Oh my. That is a massive draw.
Zero amount of ooze on top of all of this as well.
Just defense. Swidz, he winces to the sight of Omega Mine. All minions alive.
Okay.
Unity. Precision.
That is a silver lining for Swidz.
Plague of Murlocs, quite ironic. You know, I was thinking about that Divine Shield guy. It does prevent the lifesteal from Ziliax here.
Let me think.
Wait, what Divine Shield guy? Oh, Argent Protector.
It kept offering Argent Protector.
It did, yeah.
I have no idea what it offers here. Like, what on earth does it think is best?
I wonder.
Nothing game winning, I can tell you that much.
You manipulate it.
You force the Black Knight?
Quickly.
Does it Black Knight a 3-2? Does Zephyrus respect Ziliax enough? I feel like he needs to push damage.
Reporting for duty.
Hagatha's scheme for one?
Pretty good here,
Do
honestly.
you have a mind?
Yeah, it's actually pretty solid here, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's really good.
He's got a Frost Shock to go with that as well.
Ah, the old 5-mana whirlwind.
Path
Now,
dimly lit.
Viper knows what he has to beat this game. It's a Hungry Crab, a Zephyrus, and a Nomi.
Wow.
So you can Frost Shock away the 3-1. You can even take 2 value trades here with the Ancestral Healing if you would like to. Maybe the Voltaic Burst he just picked up is a better way of doing it. Sure.
I must decide.
2-3 Omega Mine gets taunt. Face.
Woo! Alright. That's one way to assert dominance. I guess it makes sense. Like I said, he knows exactly what cards are left, and he knows that nothing makes a 1-1 deal with a 2-3 taunt. So that is actually just free damage.
Yep.
This is free board tension. It's board tension that you know your opponent can't interact with because you know exactly what the contents of their deck are.
Let me think.
The X factor to that is Zephyrus, but
I'm
like,
out of cards.
eh.
That's almost certainly game at this point. Swid's going to be going deep into fatigue. And that's just a clear for Viper. Talked a lot about an earthquake or a meteor needing to win games over the last 5 years. Never quite meant it as the card. I meant it quite literally. But the card will do. The card is so sick.
It's such a good card. When it got announced, like, I think a lot of people were like, whoa, okay, is Control Shaman like a thing again? Because of this, like, Viper, one of the few people to really capitalize on it. Stampeding Coda. I mean, good boy, Zephyrus, well recognized, but still.
Let me think.
Well, I mean, what could you get?
Stampeding Coda's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every card in the classic or basic set is just not good enough.
Yeah, agreed.
It's the last point of pressure that Viper needs to stave off, and I'm looking at a Plague of Murlocs in hand. Excellent sequencing. Make 2 more Murlocs. Defend the board.
Victory is
That's enough. Tied up series. Viper just parses out AoE and makes it look easy. Blow everything up. That's a great way to beat Murlocs.
Yeah. And I think this is where our disagreement came from, is like, we were both saying the same thing, but I said this is a test for the Murlocs. You said it was a test for the Char. I don't even remember which way around it was. That's how irrelevant it is. But I think that's why I ended up phrasing it like that, because the Shaman deck was always going to draw the AoE, right? That's like in my head the way I had it, because if you look at the deck, that's just what it is. Like 2 Hagatha schemes, 2 Earthquakes, Hagatha's in there as well, the Omega Mines to heal up, plus 2 Haunting Visions that he can discover extra stuff of, plus the Hagatha that he can discover extra stuff of. Like, it was always going to draw the board clears. 2 Thunderheads if you want to throw those in there as AoEs as well, which they kind of are. So the Shaman deck does seem like it's going to do one thing consistently over and over again, which is why I wanted to phrase it as like it's a test for the Murloc Paladin, to say, against a deck that just packs AoE, can this deck do anything? And it turns out, no. Although that might be a little harsh, because double tip the scale in the first like 5 to 6 cards.
Like you're 50-50 to draw the lens or the scales if you just count only the draws after Mulligan.
Yeah.
That's it. You're not counting, assuming neither in your hand. So drawing first tip and then second tip, you know, it's not good odds to happen. That's going to happen 1/3 of half the time.
Yeah, because that's the big kicker, right? If you Prismatic Lens, you get the cheap tip, and then you throw it out on turn 5 or whatever, and you get like Nightmare Amalgams, for example, plus a War Leader or 2, then suddenly you've gone too quick for Earthquake to come down, so your opponent has to have had a Hagatha scheme early that's been built up to be able to deal with that board state, or else you can potentially just OTK them on the following turn if they don't have defense against it. So I think that was potentially the big tipping point. But even then, I guess Viper's deck will feel like he can, you know, Thunderhead, zap the War Leader that might be on the board, pick apart the board turn by turn. Really interesting deck. Hope we see more of it.
Tipping point. Hey, tip the scales. I get it. Yeah, either way, though, Murloc Paladin, I think it's a deck that's like solely meant to punish inconsistent early starts. I think against a deck like AoE clear deck, it's not necessarily getting the job done. And so for Viper there, I think his Control Shaman, or Peanut Shaman, excuse me, gets the job done. Just meant to blow up lots of boards all in a row. Easy game.
Speaking of blowing up lots of boards all in a row.
Yeah, Warrior tends to do that at times too. And I think with Weapons Project in here, this matchup got a tad better.
For the Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And no surprise seeing it be a keep for Viper. The reason, and if you do need it explained, is just there are crucial minions. And you sometimes, you know, Fiery War Axe was the big reason why Warrior used to be aggro. Because if you drew that card, they just couldn't develop into you. Nothing quite that good exists in the Warrior class anymore. But when you are dealing with 1/2 minions, which a lot of the early curves are these days, you know, with Mana Worm, for example, not being a thing, there aren't many must-kill 1/3s in the game anymore. Most of the must-kill minions are 1/2s, which I guess is a pretty healthy space for them to be in. Like, if they can snowball a game and just end up winning, then starting out as a 1/2 seems reasonable. If that's the case, Weapons Project to take them out, that's the dream.
I must choose.
You know, I'm a tad surprised that Swidz didn't go with his Warrior here.
Go on.
So, if Viper queues up either Druid or his Rogue deck, he is suffering immensely to Paladin, which Swidz showed a thought to queue up there. Or, clearly queued up in game number 2. So, if he just goes the Warrior Mirror match, that's like Swidz' territory. That's where he wants to be, I feel like. We're talking Swidz, literal Warrior expert. He played this deck for years and has a mastery of it. If Viper queues Warrior into this, I feel like he's at an advantage. I don't know how much of an advantage, but it feels like he's at one. And so the question literally becomes Viper with 2 options versus Warrior as an option. Is that right? No, Quest Shaman, I'm sorry. Yeah, because Pogo Rogue's banned away from Viper.
Yes.
So he has Druid and Warrior. You're like, I feel like Warrior's fine versus that.
I mean, the X factor is Viper's combo Miracle Druid, but I imagine because he has the OTK option in there that it probably does beat Warrior. I'm 100% guesswork at this point, but
I would envision it being favored.
yeah.
I don't know.
So maybe that is Swidz Sphere. I don't know.
I think it clearly was. That's a tough call to make.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you're looking at, you know, pretty equilibrium styles where, you know, either player is choosing a deck at random in that spot. Either player has the edge. Unless it's just, you know, Viper just chilling.
Yeah, it doesn't have to do anything. It's just kind of the privilege of the control deck. If you're not going to do anything to get me to react to, I don't have to do anything in response. That was not a sentence. Pretty sure those are all the right words, I just think they're in entirely the wrong order.
Say what you said again?
Don't worry about it.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a
I
sentence.
can't even remember. It was just really bad. I think Swidz has gone about this intelligently, though. This is the first real big board push he's made, and it's in a pretty nice configuration to make the turn awkward for Viper. And this actually comes, you know, when you are a deck specialist yourself, this is one of the hidden things that isn't always apparent, is that you know how to make life awkward for that deck that you are a specialist in. Because you've played so many games as Warrior, you know the kind of boards you don't want to be looking at on turn 4. And it's kind of this exact spot that he's in. Like, the warpath is imperfect. You make your opponent use one of their absolutely best tools in the matchup to not completely clear your board and push some damage in the process. He also made 2 4-health minions, which means the other superpower play that Warrior has available on turn 4, which is Restless Mummy, was equally ineffective. I think Swidz doing a good job so far, just maximizing the amount of pressure he can generate with what has so far been a pretty lackluster opening hand.
Yeah, and it you know, it kind of is staying that way. I think Tip is an okay site right now, but you wanted the lens.
Yeah.
You wanted the lens, and you wanted to tip this turn.
Yep.
The nature of an aggressive deck is you want to force your opponent to have the right cards as early as possible, because that's the least likely time.
Yeah, but there's just not a lens in sight for Swidz this game. In fact, this whole series, it's been just the tip for Swidz.
I do find it funny that Swidz is like instinctively trying to play around Super Collider. That's just not in the deck for Viper.
I
It's just
mean,
ingrained into his head on how to make Warrior life awkward.
That's just some mighty fine warrioring right there.
I wonder.
This is Restless Mummy's doing some mighty fine warrioring sometimes as well. Dynamatic, it's just everything Viper has is shredding anything that Swidz plays. You can see another reason why you want the lens is you don't want to have dead turns. You want to thin out your deck and draw juice over champions.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about that in the Druid matchup.
Okay, okay, hang on. No!
Wah, wah.
That costs too much!
Yeah, I talked about it in the Druid matchup. Like, it's all well and good having this, like, sum total of threats in your deck. Like, you know, you say, well, I can make 4 huge boards and my Warrior opponent only has 3 huge clears. Therefore, I win. Like, no, it doesn't always work like that. You have to be able to consistently make those boards, turn after turn after turn. Because if you make one of those big boards on turn 9 and one of them on turn 12, through turns 10 and 11, they can just play things onto the board and have minion presence, which they can then use to fight back against that next big board that you make. So if you want to consistently beat Warrior in matchups like this, you need constant pressure. You need threats every turn. You need to make them play reactively so they can't just do stuff like this. Just 4/7 buff my hand, go.
We saw the similar thing in Board Control's match, where he was just parsing out resources to try to fight effectively for board. Eventually got there.
Yep. Zephyrus not active, still very unlikely to have come off. Even though he just ripped 7 cards out of his deck.
Trying to match up which one's missing so far. Toxfin,
Yeah, no Toxfin's drawn so far.
True Silver Champion.
Oh, of course, yeah, so it was an impossibility
What
with
now?
the tip. Still not having drawn a True Silver.
I think those are the only 2, though.
Sounds right.
I think after that, everything's active. Viper, of course, thinking how to best react to this spot.
What now?
I think in Viper's head, he needs 2 more AoEs to get out of this.
So I think maybe this turn you can just get away with just Restless Mummy.
I would definitely think so.
Yep.
Mummy's quite strong in this spot. No tomb can hold him. Just going for value trades.
Is there a reason the 1/1 died over the 2/3?
That's what I'm wondering. I can't think of a reason.
Let me
He has a
think.
Warpath in hand. So by having 2 health on the Dynamatic, he gets potentially Warpath first. That would only be relevant like if there was a 1 health taunt in the way. I'm not seeing it.
Maybe he just really wanted to hit Swidz for 3 before he Warpathed everything away. Is there like with Ziliak's math that changes anything? Like if you literally drew Ziliak's and attached this, like you have a 4 health thing, so it has to be attacked twice or something weird? I don't know.
Feel like we're reaching at this point.
Yeah. I don't think that's the relevant clause of this game. Something that is relevant, though, is that Swidz did not pull Sir Finley out of either one of the tipped scales.
Yeah.
So the remaining cards are 2 True Silvers, Sir Finley of the Sands.
This place is scary.
By the way, clear your board, player 6/6. Your turn.
The Lens, that was the last card. Why was I having trouble thinking of that? Either way, I think Swidz now has an opportunity.
Last 2 cards, double True Silver, by the way. Zephyrus not active with 2 cards remaining. The Nightmare. Nope.
Wait, you knew that, though?
Yeah, you knew that.
So why did he spend the 4 mana on that?
Job done. Reporting for duty.
What? You just missed development.
Yeah.
That's just bad Hearthstone.
I can't say I've got a defense for you.
I wonder.
Meanwhile, Viper's side of the board still sat on a brawl. Next turn, a Mega Devastator becomes active as well. Mega Devastator Ziliax becomes a combination. You can see how fast these Murloc Paladin games can progress, though. It's not even turn 10, and Swidz is essentially out of cards.
Yeah, he's in trouble. You know when the Murloc's coming down against you, that they're either desperate or they're very winning. And Viper doesn't look desperate to me.
I'm almost.
Or you gave them Sir Finley.
Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes too. Yo, we got to get moving. I wanted to play the Chef Nomi here. My opponent's going to brawl. I want them to brawl their own stuff.
Yeah, you might be right. Although, are you playing it into a board where they don't even need to brawl?
I think he needs to brawl. You have a Zephyrus left in the deck, too.
That's true. That is true. You could kill 2 6/6s with his board, plus Omega Devastator, kill a third. Yeah, it wouldn't be enough, right? He would still have to. I mean, it turns out based on Viper's exact hand, he might not have to because he has Omega Devastator and the second Restless Mummy, but I don't think Swidz can give credit to that quality of hand over to Viper in this position.
Must move quickly.
Meanwhile, Viper's just chilling, building himself a Reno Ziliax off this second Omega Dillo. Talking OG Reno, by the way.
I'm hearing Reno say Unity Precision Perfection, like in that voice. Just very daytime, like sales network style. Unity Precision Perfection.
Oh, that was so worth it.
Oh, let's add a Vicious Scrap Hound to the mix as well.
Yeah, sure. Again, similar to the last time this was played, Viper kind of has the control deck's dream right now. It's a solved equation. He knows everything that he has to deal with. Once again, the kicker is Zephyrus, and the more knowledge he has on situations that Zephyrus can offer weird cards, the better. But he should be able to play within a range where Zephyrus doesn't come back to bite him. A situation like this where you don't want to get hit by some weird like Savage Roar, Bloodlust, Soul of the Forest, like some ridiculous X-Factor card that can change the equation.
Yeah, I mean, his goal is just eliminate threats.
Yep, so I think as long as he's respectful, just make sure that the board stays relatively clear. There's no real punish I can imagine coming out from Zephyrus that can overcome this ever-increasing Ziliax in Viper's hand. I don't see it.
I wonder.
Earthquake or Meteor, striking Viper's location. Though I believe when you win with Earthquake in the previous game, you might become the master of those. That's a me. I think Swidz just, he had a couple turns that ended up being too slow in this one. I'm thinking the Prismatic Lens, you could have an extra 3-2 in play. The previous turn, Chef Nobi could have built board tension and forced Viper to brawl away his own stuff. Those are the two big things I think about.
Yeah, I agree. I am not defending the plays whatsoever, and I completely agree with the assessment that they looked wrong. I don't think they changed the outcome, though.
Strongly agree. You know, looking at the hand. I'm just talking perspective.
Yep.
Viper got the job done. I wonder what he's digging so deep about.
Players quite often get this deep in the tank. It's, you know, you're 99.999%, but you're constantly trying to add another 9 to the end of that.
You're not wrong. That's probably the best way I've heard that phrased. That's how you add that 9.
That's the best kind of 9 to add.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Twisting Nether. Twisting Nether is actually pretty poor there.
I'm going to use the term hot garbage.
Fair.
Yeah. Just doesn't get the job done.
Go as far as hot steaming garbage.
Ooh, yeah.
Or even hot flaming garbage.
All of the above.
Okay. It's scooping time, Swidz. I know you don't want to do it. I know you don't want to be 0-3. I know with relegation in play this season, You do not want to be giving up any game where you think you have a chance, but that chance eroded a couple of turns ago. And Viper is going to go up to a positive record now. He moves up to 2-1, but as mentioned, Swidz does fall down into that 0-3 camp, and I think already it's got to the point now with those players who have gone 0-3, they don't pick up a win in their second game this week, they'll already be staring over their shoulder. Every game from that point onwards will start to feel like a must-win game for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The relegations at stake is a massive difference where your early season is concerned. It really changes a lot of the perspective on it. But, you know, looking at Viper's lineup, it made a go-ahead with the Druid, you know, gave it the good old college try. It didn't quite get there. And then Shaman and Warrior just obliterated the Murloc Paladin.
I figured it out. Viper just came out and said, you know what? I'm so good, I can just throw away a game with this Druid deck. First game, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to 2-0 from there. Easy.
Yeah, well, let's find out if that was the case. Viper, can you hear us?
Hey, I can hear you guys. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. Congratulations on your win in this set. As Sottle just said, you played the Druid in game number 1 because you're so good that you could just throw away a game and have the set anyway. Is that true?
No. Actually, I don't know. The first game is probably like one out of 10 or something where I actually have these kind of bad draws. It was, I think when I started the first auction, or when I played the auction, I was like, okay, this hand is bad, but I at least have the floop. And after the floop, I have 5 draws for, like, I have a natural draw and 4 spells. And every of these draws was just a dead card. So, I don't know, like, the first game was really unfortunate. The Druid Mirror is one of the reasons why I play my Druid. I think it's the first time I've ever lost that matchup, honestly, out of maybe like 15 times or so.
Wow.
Like, whenever you draw Gadgetson, you usually win the mirror because you play Nomi way quicker than they do, or you have Zephyrus to reset the board, or you have an Edwin play or something like that. And yeah, things like Crystal Merchant are really difficult for Questro to deal with. So, like, if you open Crystal Merchant, it usually gives you enough cards, you find the Gadgetson, and like, it's one of the matchups where you have above 80% to draw into the Gadgetson because Questro is so slow, and
right.
You can, like, get multiple draws of the Merchant. So yeah, just kind of unfortunate game there.
So we were looking at the deck more, like, while we're talking about this Druid, like, what are the other good matchups and what are the bad matchups for the deck?
I think it's generally a control kill deck because you just go infinite Nomi and you cycle your deck by turn 7-8 on average. Also, I think what makes the deck, like, especially in the control matchups, really good is the option compared to some other, like, the iterations of the deck before. With your Nice now, you have infinite amounts of Nomi, first of all, so you just have the win condition, and you can copy the healing effects with Crystal Power, I think, the 1-mana card that heals.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most, it's like Hunter Ace said last week with Holy Rev Pan, because Zephyrus got added to the game. All these hyper cycle decks just have so many different win conditions, and it's going to take some time to actually learn when Zephyrus is going to give you which card and then figure out this is my best win condition. Right. Like, I feel like you win a lot of games by just drawing cards into playing Zephyrus for the Edwin. But also one thing Druid in general struggles with is dealing with high health minions. And Zephyrus gives you Shield Slam or Execute to actually, like, deal with things, or just Twisting Never. I don't know, it just makes especially the auctioneer turns so much better and just so much more clean.
So talk to me about the rest. Talk to me about the rest of the lineup here. You had the Pogo Rogue, and you also had the Control Shaman, or the Peanut Shaman, that was in here. What inspired this total lineup in general? Because it looks like it's a control killer to me.
It's kind of interesting. I think my lineup can literally switch from being a control killer to being an aggro killer lineup, because they have Control Shaman and Control Warrior, while both Pogo Rogue and the Druid deck are not essentially weak to aggro. Like, I have 2 decks that are polarized strong against control, 2 decks that are polarized strong against aggro, but they don't polarize, like, struggle into the other direction. I guess Warrior and Shaman can, like, sometimes struggle against OTK decks and such, sure, but at least I think Druid and Pogo Rogue both are okay against aggro decks. Like, it's still Rogue. It has Backstab, it has Miscreant, and Druid. The Spirit of Raptor thing is interesting because if you get to hero power things, it's just a 1-mana draw too. It's like the Christology for Paladin, kind of. So, I don't know, I think I went with the lineup because I figured out the Druid deck essentially before Soul, but it just, like, never made the cut against Mage. because it was so difficult to beat Frost Nova and Blizzard with Nomi as your win condition. It's like almost impossible. You can't do anything. You just lose to that. So I was really, really happy about seeing the Mage nerfs, and then the Druid deck was my first thought. Then I talked to Vyra how Control Shaman is, and he was like, yeah, it's actually so good after Mage is gone. Then I had 2 decks, and I had, okay, let's play Warrior, because Warrior is a good deck, and I just wanted to figure something out that's good against Warrior and Holy Wrath Paladin, because I was expecting that of Hunter Ace, and I was expecting Warrior by everybody. So somehow Pogo Rogue made it in there, but it was the deck I changed every day of the week preparing for this event, and I just never was really sure what to play. And I just ended up with Pogo Rogue because it was good against Warrior. I could just play the one ticker to beat Paladin, and then I was kind of convinced.
Because you mentioned that you are playing against Hunter Ace later in the weekend, obviously rematch from the World Championship Finals, and we believe the first time that you would have played competitively since the World Championship Finals. Is that true? Yeah, so are you looking forward to perhaps exacting some revenge? Are you going to play Rafarm in your deck? There's a better question.
Sadly not this time.
All right, Viper. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure hearing your thoughts. I love your lineup. I think it looks super interesting, and I'm really looking forward to your match against Hunter Ace. So congratulations, and good luck in the rest of your weeks.
Thank you.